Here we have a strange story. As Shlomo of Karlin. Rav Shlomo of Karlin was a very, very holy rabbi. He was also friends with the first Rebbe of Chabad, even though he was much older. The first Rebbe of Chabad, Rebbe Shneur Zalman, he was the youngest. But in some ways, he was the most gifted of all of the pupils of the Maggid of Mezrich. Maggid of Mezrich was the successor for the Baal Shem Tov. So Rav Shlomo Merkarlin, in those days, there was tremendous opposition to this Chassidic movement. Tremendous opposition. And those people that were opposed to the Chassidic movement, they were very devoted and genuinely caring Jews, religious Jews. And they really cared about God and about the Torah and about the Jewish people. And they really thought that this Hasidic movement was destroying Judaism. It was cheapening it. It was making it too easily available, lowering the standards, and generally Hasidic ideas and Hasidic leaders should be eliminated. Well, Shlomo Micharlin, he was one of the followers of he was one of the big Hasidim of the Maggid of Mezrich, and he knew that it wasn't so. And eventually, everybody found out that it wasn't so. That it was really good, but it was very different. It was very different. And some people didn't like any changes. They didn't like changes, so it was very different. So, he would go around to different towns, and he would teach ideas of Hasidut, the oneness of God, the goodness of the world, how good every human being is, how good especially the Jewish people are, and how everyone can get rid of all of your sins just by turning to God, and how even the highest and most holy people, they also have to work on coming closer to God, doing tshuva and etc. And these ideas were like too revolutionary for the others, but the young people liked them because they were true. And so the young people liked them. Because the young people liked them, the young people also like false things, but in this case, they were true and they liked them. So there was one town, oh, good, a story about Rabbi Shlomo of Karlin. 1 second, 1 minute, there we go. We do this over here. We make a big picture. Oh, there we go. Okay, ready? Rav Shlomo of Karlin. So Rav Shlomo of Karlin, he went around to different towns, and he gathered together young people and taught them ideas of Chassidut. The Chassidut was very, very violently, vehemently opposed by most Jews in this time. It was a brand new movement, and it was really hated and despised. So Rabbi Shlomo of Karlin, he had to do this in secret. He would come to the town, like, let's say, once a year, once every half a year, twice a year. And he would teach these boys in secret in the nighttime. And they received a tremendous inspiration from this. And they had to hide it from everybody. They had to hide it from their parents. They had to hide it from everyone that they were learning these ideas of Hasidut. Now, before he would start teaching them, he usually was traveling around, so he wanted to go to the mikveh. Now, the opposers of the Hasidic movement, they did not warm up the mikveh. They thought it was a bad thing to warm up the mikveh. And there's even a law, you're not supposed to warm up a mikveh. Anyway, and the Hasidim did warm up the mikveh. They did warm up the mikveh. They also knew the law, and so how do you warm up the mikveh? So there was a mikveh there in this town where Shlomo Karlin would visit. And so how would they warm it up? So somebody stole the key, and they would go there in the night, and he would start giving the classes like at 3 a.m. or something until 5, and then he would leave. So they got a key. They went in at like 12 at night when no one would go in. They brought in wood. They lit a fire. They brought in a pot. They took water from the mikveh, from the pots, because they didn't want to carry these things in the street. And they boiled the water, and then they would pour the boiling water into the mikveh, and that would warm up the mikveh. That would warm the mikveh. That's what they did, and that's what they would do. They did it successfully, and nobody knew about it. But one time, they somehow or other, there was a bit of confusion, And of course, they had to do this whole thing in dark so that no one sensed to feel it. And one boy went down into the water. I guess he wasn't there when they filled the thing up, whatever it was. So he went down into the mikveh to see how much water there was there. And the boys in the top didn't know. And the water was boiling, and they poured boiling water on this boy that went down into the mikveh. And he started screaming. And of course, they were afraid that if this thing got revealed, then everyone in the town would know, and they would all be punished. But meanwhile, also this boy was 3rd-degree burns on his whole. And so he started screaming, and they immediately they covered him over. They took their garments, whatever, the coats, they covered him over, put him on a board, ran him over to the doctor. And 2 of the other boys cleaned up the place so that nobody would know what was happening. And they took him to the doctor, and the doctor looked at him, and he saw there was 3rd-degree burns all over his body. And the doctor said, what can I do? I don't know what to do. Meanwhile, about a half an hour, 10 minutes, whatever, after, they took the boy out and they cleaned. So Shlomo Karlin came, and he came to the mikveh, and he saw they were cleaning the place out, and said, what happened? And so they explained it to him. So he went to tell me where the boy is. So he went to where the boy was. The boy was laying on the table, breathing his last breaths. And Shlomo Karlin took his hand. Of course, he was naked, laying on the table. He took all of his garments off, and he closed his eyes, took his hand, and he passed his hand over the boy's body. And where he passed it, his flesh healed. And he said, okay, now turn him over. And sure enough, and the boy got healed. And immediately he sat up. He said, I'm thirsty. Give me water. I'll drink it. And he gave him the water. It was a miracle. They saw a clear miracle. The boy was dead. He was on his last breath for sure. And there was no way that he was going to survive. They had no treatment. He was terrible burns all over his body. And they saw that he just passed his hand over. They saw before his eyes that his flesh became healed. And well, it so happened that the first Rebbe of Chabad, Rabbi Shner Zalman, he also went around to towns, and he also gathered young people up, and he also taught them the ideas of Chassidut. And it happened to be that he went to the same town where Shlomo Karlin went. And the boys told him that Shlomo Karlin was here, and he said, okay, as long as I'm here. So he spoke to them, and they really liked it. And they invited him to come back again. And he came back another time when Rabbi Shlomo Karlin wasn't there. And the next time the Rabbi Shlomo Karlin came, as the Alter Rebbe had already been there twice, and he spoke to the boys, the same thing. They warmed up the mikveh, and he spoke to the boys. And according to even this boy that had, he saved his life, he was there. And he spoke to them in the middle of the night, but Rabbi Shlomo Karlin felt that these boys were not giving him the same devotion, the same attachment, like we just learned in the Yom Yom. They weren't really attached. So he said to them, what happened? Why aren't you? They said, listen, Rabbi, what you're saying is so beautiful, and it's just so wonderful, and it's just so true and everything. But, Rabbi Shner Zalman was here, and he spoke, and what can I say? We're attached to him now. We're followers of his. So he said, okay. He said, I can understand that. He's a very great man, and it's a good thing that you're attached to him. And it seems that you weren't meant to be my followers. I'll find other followers, which he had ample followers. I mean, there's it. He said, but he turned to that one boy, and he said, but I don't understand. He turned to the boy whose life he saved. He said, but I don't understand. How could you become loyal to the Rebbe when you saw what I did for you? You saw the big miracles that I caused God to do for you. How can you leave me? You saw. So the young man said, Rabbi, please don't get mad at me. He said, you showed us what God can do for us. Miracles, amazing miracles. But this rabbi of Chabad, Shner Zalman, he's teaching us what we can do for God. And that's why I became a follower of his. And that's the basic idea of Chassidut Chabad, what we can do for God without thinking about ourselves whatsoever. But we're sure that God will do good for us and bring Mashiach. Now, have a good day. Thank you very much for coming. God bless you, and hope to see you tomorrow, Friday. we'll finish or try to finish the Devar Malchut. Shalom Uvracha.